A number of basic skills needed for critical thinking are 1. Evaluating sources of information. The ability to choose from among alternative sources the most reliable and accurate source in relation to a given subject. A critical thinker must always question sources of information. Historians, for instance, distinguish between primary sources and secondary sources. To read and think critically, one must be able to recognize primary sources. This is not enough. However, because primary sources, e.g., eyewitness account, do not necessarily provide accurate information, the historian must decide which account seems most accurate, keeping in mind the potential biases of the eyewitnesses too. Separating fact from opinion. The ability to make the basic distinction between factual statements, those that can be demonstrated or verified empirically, and statements of opinion, those that are beliefs or attitudes that cannot be proved. Consider this statement. As with Karen, 2% people in India are Buddhists. This is a factual statement because it could be proved by checking from the latest census information. But the statement, the people involved in animal rights groups have mixed up morals, is an opinion. Someone who agrees with animal rights groups would have a different idea of what is moral than someone who does not agree. When investigating controversial issues, it is important that one be able to distinguish between statements of fact and statements of opinion. It is also important to recognize that not all statements of fact are true. They may appear to be true, but some are based on false or inaccurate information. For this activity, however, we are concerned with understanding the difference between those statements which appear to be factual and those which appear to be based primarily on opinion. From various sources of information, we are constantly confronted with statements and generalizations about social and moral problems. In order to think clearly about these problems, it is useful if one can make a basic distinction between statements for which evidence can be found and other statements which cannot be verified or proved because evidence is not available, or the issue is so controversial that it cannot be definitely proved. 3. Identifying stereotypes. The ability to identify oversimplified, exaggerated descriptions, favorable, unfavorable, about people, and insulting statements about racial, religious, or national groups, based upon misinformation or lack of information. 4. Recognizing ethnocentrism. The ability to recognize attitudes or opinions that express the view that one's own race, culture, or group is inherently superior, or those attitudes that judge another culture or group in terms of one's own. Five. Ability to empathize. The ability to empathize, to see a situation from another person's vantage point, is an important skill. When we empathize, we put ourselves in someone else's position. This helps us to look at a problem in a way that perhaps we have not considered before. The ability to understand an opponent's viewpoint is a difficult skill, one that is needed for a highly emotional and controversial subject like the benefits of animal experimentation. Thus, it is important not only to consider another viewpoint but equally important to be able to critically analyze that viewpoint. It is an undisputed fact that the number of good researchers in the society is quite limited. Everybody cannot be a good researcher. A good researcher, as they say, must possess certain qualities of head. It is also important to remember that no researcher can be without shortcomings. Thus, he must be aware of these so that he is able to take such limitations, drawbacks, and shortcomings